friends and newcomers to our Friday Special Conversations with Special People lecture series. I'm so happy to introduce our very special guest, Matt Glass, founder and chief executive officer of Eventage, event production company. Matt has been a wonderful guest and has spoken here before on February 16, 2006, also on March 6, 2014. So I think I'm going to book him for another lecture here in 7 years. And God willing, you can tell us
in person
past the pandemic, right? In person, and you'll get coffee and cookies, and isn't that, that's my gift to the speakers. Now I can't even do that. Anyway, Matt, before you had spoken on behind the scenes planning of large scale events, but in today's world, your topic will be producing events during a global pandemic. That has to be very challenging, and you're so interesting. I never have to worry what your topic will be. We've learned so much from you, and thank you for being such a wonderful South Orange resident. You do so much within the town too. But in any case, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our very special guest and friend, Matt Glass.
Thank you, Phyllis. And I can't believe it's been this long. So I'm in my kitchen in South Orange, and I moved here with my wife, who's also my business partner, in 2005, Labor Day, when she was pregnant with our second daughter, Leah, who is now a freshman at Columbia High School and has been in the building 6 times now, which is very exciting. And our office is actually downtown above the Chase Bank next to Spiota Park. We're the 2nd and 3rd floors up there. So it's been a long trip here in South Orange, and I have been involved in South Orange a lot with the South Orange Village Center Alliance, and now with the Meadowland Park Conservancy, and we just love it here. And I think I said this to Phyllis, both my parents are retired professors, and my mom's still with us, and the thing was, whenever you get to a town, the first thing you need to do is find out where the library is.
Right.
And I think I did that when I got here, because my 2 things of becoming a suburbanite, coming after 14 years in New York, was getting a library card and going to Costco to get a grill, or going to Home Depot to buy a grill. So I had a grill and a library card. I knew I was set in the suburbs. I am going to share my screen for those of you who have who are looking at the screen. And Phyllis is correct. It is last time, the other times I've spoken has been about producing large scale events, and what we do for a living kind of became illegal in a sense last March. So first I want to do is take you briefly through our history and how we got to where we are. So we're going to go real quick up until last March 13th, which is actually my birthday. So on my birthday is when the national pandemic was declared, the national emergency was declared, and then we'll spend more time talking about what we've done since then. So where we started in the event business was at Macy's. So I was production manager for Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and that's where I met Jen. I got very lucky to get the job that I did. And we worked on the parade, the fireworks, the flower show, Tapomania, which was the event where we broke the world's record of people tap dancing on 34th Street. But my first job, which was a temporary job, which turned into a full-time job, was I was Santa Claus's boss. So you probably all know of Miracle on 34th Street. Macy's is the only Santa. I was lucky enough to get the job running Santaland, which is 300,000 people visiting Santa Claus from the day after Thanksgiving until Christmas Eve. And on Christmas Eve, I was the guy who had to tell people at 5:30 that Santa had gone to the North Pole and we were closed for the season. So they put the nice Jewish boy from Long Island at the end of the line to say, sorry, you can't see Santa, which actually I embraced that part of the job, which was meeting all kinds of people, dealing with all kinds of people. And I learned so much at Macy's. But Jen and I both determined we didn't want to stay there forever. It was an amazing place to grow up, but it wasn't a great place to continue our career. So I went and left and did what are called industrials. So these are private events for sales forces and companies, like national product launches for pharmaceutical shows and car shows. And Jen went into the Broadway world and did marketing promotions for Broadway shows, mostly on the road, but also in New York. And then in 1998, we started our company in our apartment on Charles Street in the West Village. So we have grown since then, we moved out here. So our older daughter, Jess, who is, you can see my Indiana shirt. I only have one, but she is a freshman at the Indiana University in Bloomington. So she was born in the city, and then when she was 3.5, we knew we wanted to move out. Jen's from Cleveland, I'm from Eastern Long Island. I knew we didn't want to go out to Long Island. We were thinking about Cleveland, but the business was growing, so we ended up in South Orange, which is the luckiest thing that we ever did. And Jen talked to me into moving the business out here, which was also the best thing we ever did. We have kind of a unique mix of clients. We do a lot for nonprofits. We also do some work for brands. We have 23 people now, who most of them, well, up until last March 13th, were working in South Orange. We have somebody in DC and somebody in Philadelphia, but we'll talk about how that changed once the pandemic changed everything. I have on screen a list of our clients over the last couple of years, and they're pretty well-known names, both from the nonprofit side, American Heart Association, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, the Parkinson's Foundation, Susan G. Komen, names you've heard of, and also on the brand side, it's Budweiser. We used to do work for actually Budweiser and Anheuser-Busch China. And with the previous administration, with the relationships with China changing, we stopped doing work for them. But Excedrin and Nestea and some other brands that you might recognize. So a lot of it is production, but it's also creative development and consulting for all these different kinds of nonprofits and brands. So we do about half our work in New York City and about half our work in markets all across the country in pretty iconic places, because a lot of these public events happen in places where there's a lot of people who come, so high traffic locations. So for instance, in New York in Times Square, but also places that are visually, are scenic and are iconic for these brands and these nonprofits to have these events in places that people want to be in. So we divide what we do. We're about to launch a new website. Actually, I just was on a call about our new website. It's going to launch hopefully in May, but we divide what we do into 5 things: nonprofit events, large scale public events like the New York City Marathon and the 5-Hour Bike Tour, brand activations. I mentioned a couple of those brands we work for, conferences, which is kind of new for us. And now that last one is hybrid/virtual, because that's what we've had to start doing. We've had to start figuring out how to do events over the internet because we were forced to last March. So I'm going to take you through really quick some of the events so you can see the scale of what we did up until last March 13th, and then what we had to do to change. So since 2005, we have worked on the TCS New York City Marathon. We do logistics in Staten Island to get 50,000 runners to drink their coffee, go to the bathroom, stretch out, and then get ready to run. We manage all of the medical stations along the course, the elite fluids along the course. So if you're a professional runner from Kenya, you do not drink the same water and Gatorade that the schlubs who run the longer runners take. You actually come with your own fluids, and those are at 5K, 10K, 15K, and we manage that process of getting those. We also now produce the opening ceremony, which is on Friday night. And when the world returns back to normal, the Friday night opening ceremony in Central Park is the best event in New York no one's ever heard of. We had 110 countries and territories represented, and it's like an Olympics opening ceremony. People come out with their flags, we put the music on, and there are selected runners from those countries who come and march as a fireworks show, and it's totally free. So it happens the Friday before the marathon. It will likely not happen this year. There will likely be a New York City Marathon this year, but it'll be scaled back. This is our longest client, which is Bike New York, since 2003. That is the largest recreational cycling event in America. It's 32,000 people riding their bikes 42 miles around New York City. And if you are familiar with New York City, you know that riding your bike on the BQE and the FDR and across the 59th Street Bridge and the Verrazano Bridge is unheard of. But one day a year, all those roadways are shut down. And we do the rest areas, and we also do the expo for the 2 days leading up to it, where people come pick up their packets, and it's all cycling merchants who come, and it's like a trade show. Bike New York, 5-Hour Bike Tour was canceled last year completely. It is usually the first weekend in May. It is not happening the first weekend in May this year, but they have said that it's going to happen this October. So one of the interesting things that's happening is all these events that were supposed to be in the spring are now postponed till the fall. And I don't know how we're going to get all this done in the fall, because every event is going to be at the same time. We do a lot of fundraising cycling events. So we produce what's called the Closer to Free Ride for the Smilow Cancer Hospital in New Haven. So this is under Yale's umbrella. And we started in 2011, just doing logistics for 250 riders. By 2019, we had about 2,500 riders, and we raised $3.5 million for cancer care and research at Smilow. 2020, we did it virtually, and we'll talk a little more about. And then 2021, we just found out because May 16th, Connecticut is opening for fully opening. Masks are requested indoors and in some places required, but we now know that we are going to produce some sort of in-person event in New Haven. And these are 5 different cycling routes from 10 miles up to 100 miles. And people have to raise a certain amount of money in order to participate. We created a new cycling event for Columbia University's Cancer Center, and that's called Velocity. And it would have been in its 4th year live in 2020, but it got canceled, but we did it online, and it'll probably be online again in 2021. One of the interesting things about these healthcare organizations we work for is that they don't want to be seen as doing something that's not healthy. So, you know, if they have participants and constituents who are undergoing chemo or who are immunocompromised, they don't want to have them come and gather in large numbers, probably more cautious than any other clients that we have. So we are still trying to figure out what's going to happen with Velocity, but it has been very successful. It's 4 different distances, starting up in the Hudson Valley and ending at Columbia's medical campus, which is 168th Street and Fort Washington Avenue up in Washington Heights. Some of you may have heard the Avon Walk for Breast Cancer. We helped create it in 2002, and it went until 2016. And these were 2-day fundraising walks in 9 cities around the country. So all the people would walk 26.2 miles on day 1, sleep in tents in a camp, and then walk 13.3 miles, a half marathon on day 2. That's why it was called Avon 39 eventually when the name changed. And we do the ceremonies. So that's what I focus on a lot. I focus on scripting and music and making people, as we say, laugh, cheer, and cry when they come to an event. Because especially a fundraising event, when you come to a fundraising event, you need to know why you're there and why you've raised this money. The whole other topic about people who come to these events and don't raise any money, but our goal is to try to get them to raise as much money as possible. The Alzheimer's Association in 2010 renamed their walk, which was called the Memory Walk, to the Walk to End Alzheimer's, and we came in and we recreated what we call their on-site experience. So this is a walk that you probably all heard of, these charity walks. You sign up, hopefully you raise some money, you ask your grandkids if they'll donate, or someone would ask you if you would donate, and then you show up, and then you walk around the park or you walk around the block. Our job was to make it much more than that. So we developed what was called the Promise Garden. So everyone who came to the event got one of these. I know some of you can't see it, but these are like lawn flowers that spin in the wind. And a different flower represented your connection to Alzheimer's disease. One color was I have Alzheimer's or dementia. Another color is I've lost someone to Alzheimer's or dementia. Another one is I currently care for someone, or I love someone who has Alzheimer's. And the 4th color was I'm just here because I want to see Alzheimer's rid from the world. So these 4 color flowers were given out to people. And during the opening ceremony, they would hold up the flower when they would ask. So all the people with Alzheimer's would hold up their flowers at one time. And then they would give the flowers at the end of the ceremony to volunteers. They'd come back and we would, quote unquote, plant the flowers in the Promise Garden, and people would get to see the messages that people wrote on it. It was very successful. It's still being used 11 years later. We don't work on it anymore. But this is something we do for a lot of these walks around the country, is we help them make the walk more powerful. We help them have more connection to their participants rather than just come down, get a bagel, get your t-shirt, and walk around the block. We want them to laugh, cheer, and cry, and understand why the money they raise is going to lead us to the end of whatever cause they're there for. In this case, it was Alzheimer's. On the branding side, just real quick, we've done kind of stunty things. So Hellman's turned 100 years old a few years ago. And it turns out Hellman's was invented on the west side of Manhattan at a deli, I guess. So we built the world's longest picnic table. And it was a Guinness record, which I have experience with from Macy's, from tap dancing, but it's a very long and drawn out process to get Guinness to officiate and to legally say that it is a record. So we had 500 people eat lunch at a very, very long picnic table. The picnic table was built on site because we couldn't put it in a truck, obviously, because it was 300 feet long. And then all the wood was donated to Habitat for Humanity afterwards to hopefully, I guess they said they were going to use the wood to help build houses with. So it got a lot of media. And that was the goal, was to get people to buy more mayonnaise, because that's what some of our clients do. And speaking of buying more stuff, this is a mobile tour we did for Nestea. Nestea came out with the new, simpler ingredients, and we built a tiny house. I don't know if any of you know what a tiny house is. It's kind of a new thing where people live in 100 to 200 square feet, like, the size of a smaller than a studio apartment, but it's a house. It's a standalone house. So we built a tiny house, and we brought it to different markets around the country, and we gave out a lot of new Nestea, and we gave people tours of the house. They're really cool, actually. If you ever get a chance to go in a tiny house, every single inch is designed to be functional. There is no extra space anywhere, and I think we could probably all downsize a little bit in that way. So that was something that we did for Nestea and Nestle Waters. And on the conference side, there's something called 100K in 10, which you may or may not have heard of. In 2011, President Obama made a pledge and a challenge to recruit 100,000 STEM teachers in 10 years. So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. Some people add an A to it and make it STEAM because they put arts into that. So every year, and so that the nonprofit is called 100K in 10, 100,000 in 10. And it's interesting enough, we're at 2021 right now, which is 10 years later. And we have done their summit every year, where they bring educators and scientists and people from the STEM community together. And we've been in really cool places. If you can see the photo, that is the Saturn V rocket shed in Houston. We were the first event to ever do a conference in that shed. We've been to Google headquarters. We've been to the Museum of Science, Technology, Science Industry in Chicago. We've been to the San Diego Zoo. We were supposed to be in Pittsburgh at their Science Center last year, but it got canceled. So this is a mix of logistics, of figuring out how we use different rooms, working with presenters, AV, a kind of more traditional conference. So that's kind of a quick overview of the kind of things that we have done up until March 13th last year. So March 13th last year, when we all thought, well, this is, a lot of people thought this. It's in China, it's in Asia, oh, maybe it's in Seattle. It's not really going to affect us. And then all of a sudden, as we all know, it did. So the first thing we did, because we had been through things, you have to remember, on September, I lived in the West Village, and our office was on 25th Street on September 11th, 2001. And we thought, are people ever going to gather in large groups again after a terrorist attack killed thousands of people? And we made it through. We rebuilt our business, and large events came back, and we figured, okay, this is going to happen as well. And maybe our spring 2020 events will get canceled, but we'll be back in the fall. There'll be a New York City Marathon. We'll do all our stuff in the fall. Well, obviously, I was incredibly wrong. So the first thing we did is we reached out to our clients and said, listen, we have contracts with you, and instead of canceling the contracts, let us help you figure out how to solve this, how to salvage this. So for instance, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, which is our biggest nonprofit client. So they fund research and care for blood cancers, leukemia, lymphoma, multiple myeloma. We do a lot of work with them. And we were in the middle of a contract of producing 12 stair climbs for them. So stair climbs are a new kind of fundraising event where you go to a building and you gather in the lobby, and then you run up the steps as fast as you can, or it doesn't have to be as fast as you can. You can take your time. And as we would say in the script of the opening ceremony, is you're going to climb 70 floors when there's a perfectly good elevator right there. I'm very impressed and proud of you. And they do it to raise money. And a lot of people do it because they've lost someone to a blood cancer, or they are a blood cancer survivor. So we had produced 3 of them: Dallas, Minneapolis, and I can't remember what the third one was. And then it all got shut down. And we said to LLS, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, let us help you virtualize this. Let us help you salvage the fundraising. Because remember, most of our clients are relying on these people raising funds to go then do an activity. The activity is now gone. So how do we get them to keep raising the funds? So we created with them a virtual Big Climb. It's called Big Climb. And on May 13th of last year, we created an online ceremony, a video that they watched. And then we had them go climb their own steps around their neighborhoods, or we kind of gave them instructions on how to go do it themselves. And it actually works. Because people are connected to causes, they still wanted to raise some money. They still wanted to get out there and do something physical. And this was at a time, remember last May, when everything was so uncertain, you couldn't go in crowds at all, but you could go walk around your neighborhood. You could go to your local high school and climb up your steps. So we gave them lots of instructions and opportunity how to do it. So that's one example of how we did that. We did that with other nonprofit clients as well. Said, let us help you figure out how to turn this into a virtual production. One of the our clients is Northwell Health, which in New Jersey you might not be familiar with, but they're actually the largest private employer in New York State. Lenox Hill, North Shore LIJ, all these big hospitals are now part of Northwell Health. We do a walk for them every year, every May, that is out in Long Island, in 2 locations, in Staten Island and Westchester. Obviously, the walk went away. So the first thing we did was let us help you. They were on the forefront of COVID research and relief. I mean, their hospitals were getting bombarded every day. So we turned the Northwell Health Walk website into a campaign to raise money for COVID relief. And the campaign raised over $1 million. And we were very focused on where does the money go? Well, the money goes to babysitting for the nurses and doctors and people, it's for mental health counseling for all these people who saw so much death and destruction during the day. They didn't want us to say for PPE because they were in good shape with PPE, but we wanted to make the point that even you were going to come walk with us, but now actually we need you to still raise money for a different reason, because these frontline heroes need our help. And it worked. So this website, if you're looking at the screen, was the walk website. So it was, form a team and, come and walk with us. And we just changed it to be, you can still form a team, but we want you to raise money. You're not going to walk anywhere, but you're going to help all of the people on the front lines. The other thing that happened is our beautiful office in South Orange turned into what we call a broadcast hub. So we became an internet video production company. We had always produced videos, maybe 2 or 3 a year. We didn't do a lot. But what ended up happening is we had to now virtualize everything we were doing. And virtualize meant people would be at home on their computers or their laptops or their TVs, and they would watch a broadcast of some sort. So as interesting that happens is my best friend from high school, who actually is a multiple myeloma survivor, so we would make videos for LLS that featured people just like him. We ended up working so much more with him. We ended up creating an entire system online to receive videos from people, because we would make these videos. And my point of view is it always have to tell stories of real people. So we would script someone and teach them. We created something called an RFA, which is remote filming assistance. And one of my team would get on a Zoom or a phone call, let's say with Phyllis, who's going to record her story in her kitchen. And we'd say, okay, Phyllis, let's look at your lighting. Let's look at how you're going to use this. Or are you going to use your phone to record it? Because interestingly enough, we found out the best video camera in most people's houses is their phones. And then they would upload those videos, and then we would put it together with music and with graphics. And if you see these images here, these images are of our team in our office. Our office has 70 people in it on a day-to-day basis. We're probably going to go back Labor Day, we think. Our office turned into a production studio and broadcast hub. And these videos will be broadcast on Facebook, they'd be broadcast on YouTube or Vimeo or on the client's webpage. We're very big on the chat function. So people would watch, let's say, a video about Light the Night, and we'd want them to chat with each other. I'm a survivor from Kansas. I walk in honor of my mom in New Jersey. The chat became live. I'll tell you, there were 2 things that were golden rules. One, if it doesn't have to be live, it shouldn't be live. Almost all the stuff we have done is pre-recorded. And 2, not everything translates. So the events we used to produce, like a gala or something, it doesn't translate to just put it online. We have to curate every event for an online audience, because nobody wants to sit in front of their computer for hours and watch boring speeches. We need to use music. We need to use very effective short storytelling. A couple other examples. We have produced Rutgers Newark's commencement at the Prudential Center for several years now. it's cool for me because I get to be the voice of God, the announcer at the Prudential Center, which is really amazing. So I get to announce that the School of Arts and Sciences is now entering. And so it's a commencement, you know, it's fine, it's good. And obviously it didn't happen in 2020. So we brought their commencement online. And then we ended up working with South Carolina State University for their commencement, one other university. And this year we are actually producing commencements online for NYU Steinhardt School, which is their education social work school. We're producing 12 commencements for them. So we just did a studio shoot on campus at NYU because all of the faculty and administrators made their remarks in front of a camera, and we're actually editing them right now. I'm heading to Brooklyn on Saturday to continue editing that, and that will air soon. For the cycling event, we tried to figure out how to bring things to life. So last year's Closer to Free ride in New Haven did not happen, but we wanted people to go ride on their own. Everyone's favorite part of the Closer to Free ride was called the Smilo Salute. So it's Smilo Cancer Hospital, a mile from the Yale Bowl where we all started. Those of you who saw that photo before of all those people with the video screens, that's the Yale Bowl. They all leave, and then a mile from there is the hospital. And our tradition was that all of the patients and doctors and nurses would come down to the sidewalk and cheer the riders on, and the riders would pause. And it was the best video and the best images. It was the most emotional part. It's everybody's favorite part of the ride. There'd be, you know, people in wheelchairs hooked up to IVs, hugging our riders. Interesting enough, people with masks, who back then it was odd to have someone wearing a mask. So the Smilo Salute was something that everyone loved so much. In 2020, we obviously couldn't do it. First of all, not all the patients were back because they moved a lot of the cancer patients out because Smilo became a COVID hospital. But what we did was we took the names of all of the people who had registered to ride, and we put them on a 72-foot long banner that has, and if you see the screen, it has "We Ride for You" on it. And all their names were in the words "We Ride for You." And we placed that banner on the street in front of the hospital where everybody could see it. So the photo that's on screen here is from the 11th floor. And so all the patients could come and look out the window and see that we were still riding for them. We told the riders, do not come to Smilo Cancer Hospital, do not come to the Yale Bowl. We want you riding on your own, out in your own routes, and we will support you that way. And it worked, and people really liked it. We've also done some other walks, like for the Jimmy Fund, which is up in Boston, where we have a broadcast in the morning and then we have them go out and walk on their own. So our model was, we can't be together, but we can get you together online at the beginning, and then you can go out and do your thing, walk, run, ride, climb, and hopefully you'll still raise money. And then we use websites to get them to feel connected. You know, they can use social media or lots of different things to keep them connected. So that was our goal, is keeping these folks connected. Because our goal is that for 2021, 22, we need to keep these people connected to these causes. The world will come back to normal. So I have up on screen here is that spring 2020 and fall 2020 were kind of in some ways easy because we knew there were no events. We just knew that you couldn't gather together. So we, you know, credit to our team, we totally pivoted. We became a virtual event production company. We learned about platforms, we learned about bandwidth, we learned about all these things we didn't know about. Spring 2021, where we are right now, we are mostly virtual. For Rutgers in Newark, we are actually doing our first physical event in over a year. We're doing Senior Week event where the seniors can come to their quad and decorate their mortar boards. And it's very low key and it's very COVID friendly, but it is a physical event. And then fall 2021 is really the question because we just don't know. So I mentioned Closer to Free, the ride in Connecticut is going to happen in person in some way. We don't know what format it's going to take, but it's going to happen. And now that, I don't know if you all heard, Mayor de Blasio yesterday announced that New York City is reopening on July 1st. So that's great for restaurants and bars and everything like that. But really, what does it mean for us? What does it mean for the New York City Marathon? What does it mean for all these events that we do on the West Side? We just don't know what we will be, A, be allowed to do, and B, what the public will be comfortable with us doing. Because that's the other thing about this, is we have populations, as I mentioned before, who are battling all kinds of causes, from multiple sclerosis to cancer, and they may not be comfortable coming to a big crowd. The other thing is, from the point of view of optics, we need to make it look like we're being safe and keeping people apart and having hand sanitizer and all those things. So we are now in a really challenging moment because the glorious thing is we're going to get back to what we do regularly for a living, but we just don't know when that's going to happen for real. And the last thing we want to do, and we're I'm trying to counsel our clients is don't try to do something that isn't going to be a good experience, because the experience has to still be wonderful for them. We need to make that connection of why you're there, to raise money for whatever cause it is. The other challenge that we're seeing is depends on where you are in the country. So we just were consultants on a cycling event in Miami for their cancer institute. They had 2,500 people ride. This is 3 weeks ago. It's Florida. Florida doesn't have any restrictions. You can't do that in New York. You can maybe do it in Texas and Arizona. Because we work on a national level in all these locations, for instance, with Light the Night, which is Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, they're trying to figure out this fall, where can they do walks in person? It sounds like more and more things are opening up. So everything you hear on the news about opening up affects us, because we have to try to figure out whether our events can happen in person or not. So Phyllis, that was the end of the show and tell that I had. And I would love to be able to answer any questions or see what people thought.
Oh, I have to just say, number one, God bless you and your wife and family. You are doing, it makes me want to cry that what you're doing is so wonderful for so many people who are affected by any one of the things that you have thought outside the box and made sure that money is going for research and to help so many in so many different fields. Like I say, God bless you, because it's not often that you meet someone whose goal is to make others happy and help. And that's what yours is.
It's a nice part of the job. It is a very nice part of the job. So thank you. And I
volunteer anytime you need someone just to volunteer and use the phone. I'm good at that, the phone. But
nobody uses the phone anymore. That's the challenge. I wish more people use the phone.
You're talking to someone who still likes the phone, though. And you're right. Whatever way I could help, I volunteer, number one. And now everyone could ask you questions, because I'm just like overwhelmed by what you said, and I can't wait for my family to watch you, because this is going to be on Zoom and on Google. That is no YouTube. I'm sorry. And,
Google owns YouTube, so it's the same thing. You were right.
Oh, good. But in any case, so you and your wife are so creative, but you started out, was your family always like this too? Did you learn all this compassion and warmth and caring for others as a child? Or I just have to know your background.
That's an interesting question. I mean, I'm the only person in my family who's not a teacher. So my parents were both college professors. My brother is an ALS researcher and runs the ALS Center at Emory and is a faculty member at Emory's medical school. And my sister's a music teacher and music educator in the city. And I thought I was going to graduate school, because that's what you did. And I ended up at Macy's. It's just weird. I just landed into it. So, but yeah, I mean, my mother has always been, my mom's 93 and she lives in the city and is still passionate about not only reading, because they were both reading professionals, and their whole thing was about teaching not only kids but adults, literate adults, to read. But about League of Women Voters, I would tag along with my mom all the time. I still remember on election night at our elementary school, we would get the results and then go to the payphone, and my mom would call it in to somewhere, in 1975 or whatever it is, of here's how the voting went. So from a community point of view, yes, I think we fell into the nonprofit side of things almost by accident. I actually rode the Boston, New York AIDS ride in 1998, which is 250 miles from Boston to New York, to raise funds for AIDS services in New York and Boston. And we got connected with the company that built that. And then that led us to the Avon walk. And then we didn't plan on this. I'm an English major and Jen a psychology major. So we didn't plan on owning a business either. It just happened. So Jen is very much about serving local people with help in wherever she can outside of Eventage. And I think the way we created the company is about a community and a family of the company, and we take good care of our employees. And I don't know, it just kind of happened. And I certainly credit my parents for giving me the ability to do whatever I wanted to do. I think they're still waiting for me to get my master's, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen anytime soon, but I'll tell my mother.
We won't.
You're wonderful. Thank you, first of all. And now the questions for Heather.
Not a question, but
If anybody wants to ask, go ahead and unmute yourself.
hey, Matt,
Hi, Deb.
not a question, but everybody has to know, Phyllis, you have to know that they truly are genuine. I mean, Columbia High School's graduation last year was so well done, and thank you, Matt and Jen.
Well, it's our pleasure. My daughter was a senior last year, and we were in charge of Midnight Madness, which ended up not happening. But when they talked about needing a video for the graduation, the last thing I wanted to do was sit through a really bad video. So I said, we'll make it. So we made the commencement video last year. And it was fun to do. And I got to know a lot more people at CHS, and you know, hopefully they won't have to, I've heard that it's going to happen in person this year. So that's great in some form. But we're very connected to South Orange, Midwood South Orange. And that I guess does come from, you know, years of, we didn't feel that much in the city after 14 years living in the city. So that was so nice about coming out here, was feeling much more part of our community.
Maybe I can ask a question.
Mhm.
What, I know Eventage is involved in when it was on the Play Day, correct? South Orange Play Day?
Well, not really. So
Okay.
I was chair of SOVCA and the head of Eventage,
Okay.
and came up with Play Day. So Eventage, you know, one of our things is we don't get paid to do anything in Soma. So really, along with the SOVCA board and our volunteers, we all produced Play Day together, but it happened to be that Eventage was the headquarters. They used a lot of our equipment. Like, the Eventage was a sponsor because of all the in-kind stuff, but it wasn't technically an Eventage event. It was more of a me event with SOVCA.
Right.
And I don't know when Play Day is coming back. So we'll see.
I have to ask this question. I know you said that phones are not used nowadays, but how did you get so many volunteers pre-computer, where everyone has a computer?
Oh yeah.
All over the country. That I'm amazed about.
Well, a lot of the volunteers are needed for causes that people are connected to. So,
Right.
you know, let's take MS, for example. You know, the MS walks in countries, in they all have a database of people who, you know, before the internet, it was phone calls, and I guess it was faxes, you know, during that middle time there. But I remember, so I left Macy's in '96. I was there from '92 to '96. When I left, we all had spiral notebooks, 3-ring binder notebooks that we put business cards in. I still remember we had the A through Z tabs, and you would put copy paper and you'd staple in the business cards of all the people you met. That didn't have one email address on it. And I guess '96 is a really long time ago, but it doesn't feel that long ago to me. I don't know how we did what we did. We produced the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade with basically word processors. There was no internet, there was no email. There was a lot of FedExing and faxing, but we got it done, and we were busy all day. And now when my internet goes down for half an hour, I don't know what to do. You know, like nobody can get any work done because everything is in the cloud. So I think it was, you know, there have been big events for hundreds of years, and however the best way to communicate is, it's just that phone is not the most efficient way to communicate anymore. Now, I will tell you that we do fundraising and recruitment for some of our events, where we are responsible to get people to say, hey, remember, you haven't raised any money yet, and you need to raise $500 to ride. So we do phone calls. And the phone calls are done by coaches, and these are professional people who are part salespeople, but really they are a coach. You know, how are you doing on your training? How are you doing in your fundraising? I know your mom was having chemo. How is that? Like, it's very much of a salesy kind of process to get people to understand they need to raise this money. And interestingly enough, because people have gone so far away from the phone, and the only thing you get on your voicemail is junk, that when you actually have a real conversation with someone on the phone, it is much more effective now if we can reach them. So phone, email has become the lazy way to communicate with people. The other thing is that we are now reaching more people using things like Instagram and Facebook and social media. Depends on who the demographic is. So the demographic for a lot of our runs and our walks are, women 24 to 52. It's moms. It's women raise the most money. Women are the most active, and a lot of those women are on Facebook. So we can purchase an ad on Facebook and target them, and it's much more effective than doing either U.S. mail or phone. So we're constantly trying to find the best way to reach people, just like a product would. Our product just happens to be raising money for a cause.
Also, young people are involved in it too, because I'm very proud. My granddaughter is very active in raising money for cancer research in her high school. And they
Well,
work.
yes. So for instance, the Leukemia Lymphoma Society has a program called Man and Woman of the Year, which we have helped them with. Man, Woman of the Year is a fascinating concept. They take approximately 10 men and 10 women, and they say, compete to see who the man of the year is and who the woman of the year is. And they compete by raising money. And it's a mix of people who have been affected. Maybe they're survivors of lost someone, but also could be people in the community, real estate agents, bankers. They just want to be seen as connected to this cause. They raise millions of dollars across the country. And this happens in I don't know, more than 50 markets across the country. A few years ago, they started Students of the Year. It's high school students they're in teams, and they do the same thing. They compete against each other to see who the Students of the Year will be. And what we help them with is the grand finale, when they announce the winners. But the grand finale, in the old days, we did it online this year, is you go to a hotel ballroom, and there's a nice dinner, and there's a bar and whatever else, and there's an auction. And whichever candidate you're there to support, let's say you spend $500 on an auction item, that $500 goes to your candidate's account. So at the end of the night, the man and woman of the year are announced, and we don't know who the man and woman of the year are when the event starts. So it is in many ways brilliant, because they're just competing to see who wins, and they raise an enormous amount of money. So there's also used to be called Pennies for Patients. Now it's Hero Squad, which is elementary school students raising money. You may have heard of Jump Rope for Heart, which isn't around anymore, but there are lots of programs trying to get kids in a philanthropic spirit. And when you say your granddaughter, when your granddaughter sends you a note and says, would you donate to me, you're probably going to say yes.
Children too are active in raising money. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a nice way to get more people.
I think people have to learn this at a young age, how to care for others, whether, whatever it is. You are, like I say, you're a great example to your family.
Well, thank you. We got a lot of help.
I mean it. And there's someone who wants to ask you something. Oh, someone wrote thank you. This is the I'm reading.
Oh, it's Deb.
Oh, okay. Well, you are so busy. I don't know how you found time to do this for us, but I'm telling you.
It's actually nice to do something else for 45 minutes. So we'll get back at it.
We had for 35 years. I'm so spellbound by what you have said and so touched. And like I say, it's people like you that make life easier for others. So thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, thank you. And maybe, maybe fewer than 7 years. We'll see what happens. You call me. Maybe in the new building.
That'll be a dream come true.
Yeah, I know.
We're a meeting room. If I had the program here now, we could get maybe 8 people in, 6 feet apart, and forget the cookies that I used to put out and everyone would touch everything. Forget about all that.
A thing of the past.
a thing of the past. But we need people like you, more people like you, and your wife.
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Thank
is
you.
she there? Can we say hello to her?
No, she's actually delivering stuff to a family in Newark, believe it or not, that we got connected to a couple of years ago. A woman who has 12 kids, and Jenna's kind of adopted them. They're wonderful. She's got 12 kids, all of them from elementary school through college are honor students. And so we've kind of gotten connected. So that's the kind of stuff that Jen does. She'll just go, and she also runs the food pantry at Oheb Shalom. So that's how they got connected. And yeah, but I will tell her that
No,
you said
I
it.
miss, yeah, I would, if she ever comes into the library, I'd love to see her. and meet her.
Absolutely, I will.
Take
I will.
care.
All
Thank
right,
you.
nice to see you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.